With Roe versus Wade now firmly on the ash heap of history, much of our nation's attention has turned to the brand new possibility of fully protecting preborn children from abortion, state by state, community by community, and hopefully up there on Capitol Hill. These legal and political efforts are so important right now because they are actually saving lives. But we cannot succeed and argue winsomely unless we understand why abortion is fundamentally immoral. If you've ever debated abortion with someone online or in person, you may have had this experience. You enter the conversation with complete moral clarity on the issue. Murdering babies is clearly wrong. It should be self-evident to everyone, right? But after 5 or 15 minutes of chatting with an abortion apologist, you may find yourself getting confused. The conversation was booby-trapped with 1,000 distraction tactics. What about foster care? What about rape victims? Do you want young girls as young as 12 years old be punished with a rapist baby? The baby is dependent upon the woman's body for survival. So why are you against taking away a woman's fundamental right to her body? Abortion may be legal, but is it moral? Hi, everyone. This is Kristan Hawkins. Welcome to this new episode on Explicitly Pro-Life Podcast.
Abortions may be regulated, but not prohibited by state law.
There is no constitutional right to an abortion in this country anymore as of today.
Today, we're going to take a step back from all the noise and distractions, turning our attention away from the fundamental, central question at the heart of the entire abortion debate. Is abortion moral? And joining me to answer this question is the one and the only Dennis Prager. Few people living today have influenced as many people as Dennis Prager has. He has a broadcast of a national radio show for the last 25 years, which is probably longer than many of you listening have been alive. He's written 10 best-selling books, lectured on all 6 continents. His Prager University, PragerU as we call our home, has become the largest producer and distributor of non-liberal video content in the world. It has garnered over 5 billion views, mostly via young people in 91 countries. It's consumed daily in the Hawkins household. His books include Think a Second Time, 44 essays on 44 subjects, Happiness is a Serious Problem, Still the Best Hope, Why American Values Must Triumph, The 10 Commandments, Still the Best Moral Code. In 2016, Simon Schuster released revised and updated 3rd edition of Why the Jews? The Reason for Anti-Semitism, the Most Accurate Predictor of Human Evil. I could go on and on about all the accolades of Dennis Prager and the amazing work his team at PragerU is doing, but I think the highest compliment I can pay him is I think this may be the episode to finally convince my husband to subscribe to my own podcast. So, Mr. Prager, thanks for coming on today.
Well, that was a big factor in my saying yes to have your husband subscribe to your podcast.
He was so excited. I was going through my day. He goes, "You're going to have the Dennis Prager on your podcast." That meant so much because we are just so grateful for your entire team and your leadership there at PragerU for what you do. We use your videos in our instruction of our kids all the time. I love the New Present series, by the way. So,
if I just may say something about that. To parents who were worried about sending their kid to a typical American university, and they should be worried. Mm-hmm. I believe with every fiber in my body that if your child your college age student watched all 500 of our videos and all my 257 fireside chats, your child would know more about life than virtually any graduate of Yale University.
You're absolutely right. Your collection of videos and this entire education that you're giving young people across the globe is just completely revolutionizing. And I think we're going to see the fruit of that very, very soon. So thank you so much for coming on. It's an honor to have just a little bit of your time today. But so I want to get down to the million-dollar question. Why is abortion immoral?
So interestingly, there's the easy and the complex answer. The complex answer is, why is anything immoral? Why is the deliberate killing of a baby 5 minutes after birth? Why is that wrong? Why is stealing wrong? In fact, NPR, during the riots in 2020, had a woman who wrote a book in defense of looting. That's the name of her book. And she was on, I believe, for an hour on a national public radio. And they didn't find it odd that she would write a book in defense of looting. So it's the complex question is, why is anything immoral? And in the secular world in which we live, there is no answer. The answer is because people say so. And if people say not, then it's not moral or not immoral. We now have a feelings-based morality, which is really a big part of the abortion question. Now, the specifics with regard to abortion. I don't think that an honest atheist can disagree with the immorality of most abortions. And I say most, and I'll explain that if you'd like, but you don't have to be religious. I mean, in the final analysis, you have to have a God to even declare murder to be a moral absolute or an immoral absolute. But putting that aside, just on reason alone, if you use reason as your moral conduit, or your conduit to morality, you don't have to be a believer in any religion to defend the right of an unborn, call it a fetus. I don't care what you call it a pimple, but which is the way basically they do call it. It's either a pimple or a full life. I don't know the atheist argument for the morality of most abortions. If you want the child, it is a human being. You would actually arrest a person for homicide if they killed your baby that a pregnant woman wanted. But if she doesn't want it, then it is as useless as toilet paper. So how could you possibly have a moral system where an individual determines that something is infinitely worthwhile or completely worthless? Do we have any other area of life where the individual determines the complete morality of an act that otherwise is completely immoral? We don't have it. It's unique. And I don't understand what gives the mother the right to say this is worthless or this is worthwhile. Why is her vote the only vote in society? These are not religious arguments. These are simple, logical questions. She doesn't want to be pregnant unless she was raped. She voluntarily engaged in an act that produces pregnancy. It sounds to me like it's actually, to be honest, a bit narcissistic. I want to conceive, but I don't want to have the responsibility of what I've conceived. I don't find that to be the most admirable of attitudes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the most controversial things I say when I'm on campuses is, if you don't want to procreate another human being, just simply don't engage in heterosexual sex. And I even qualify it with heterosexual sex. And it's fascinating, the just instant anger that bubbles up, women coming screaming, I can have sex with as many men as I want and do whatever I want. And, my position on campus isn't that you can't have sex with as many men as you want. My position is if you do conceive and create another unique co-living human being, there's a responsibility there that you've already agreed to when you entered into that sexual relationship with that man. But that sense of personal responsibility, the sense that you have a responsibility to take care of another human being who may be inconvenient to you, that you can't simply just go and pay someone to end the life of someone who's inconvenient. And that's not a moral right thing to do. It suddenly, I think, escapes these people and just creates this instant rage effect that we see. And I think it's very sad.
The rage that you induce with that comment is the rage of people who have never been told your feelings don't determine what is right and wrong. They have never been told that. They have been raised to believe they and their feelings are the center of the universe.
That's absolutely true. I mean, this is, I think, comes down to a huge problem we have conversations is the moral relativism in the abortion debate. And now even going back to what you said at the very beginning of, how do those who don't have a religious worldview, come to the decision that abortion is immoral? How are they making that decision of what is moral, what is immoral when they live in this, just completely feelings-based, everything is relative, anything you feel like goes, society? And I think it produces, and what we're seeing now is, for the first time, I've been speaking on campuses for more than 10 years. And the past 2 years, I have heard more comments where I have asked specifically young men who come to my presentations, why does your life have value? Let's put aside the fetus, the blob of tissue, the clump of cells, whatever you want to call the child in the womb who you may or may not have a relationship to. Let's just start at the beginning. Why does your life have value? Why are you intrinsically a valuable person, have dignity? And why should your life be upheld? And they don't have an answer to that question.
They don't. That is correct. That's right. That was what I began with. I said, that's the complex part. In the secular age in which we live, how do you know anything is moral or immoral, or how do you know anything is intrinsically valuable? If you say, well, I'm valuable because I think I'm valuable and I love my life and consider it precious, but a newborn doesn't do that. Newborns don't think, gee, I'm really happy I'm here, so maybe we can extinguish their lives too. If what gives your life worth is that you think it has worth, then we have to exclude kids, I guess, under 2 years of age. And certainly, by the way, any animal. There are laws protecting dogs' lives. Dogs don't think that they're precious. They don't think about these issues, to be honest. They think about pooping, peeing, drinking, eating, walking, and getting petted. I have two, and that's what they think about.
Our puppies are precious. But they don't know they're precious.
They don't think they're precious.
Yeah, that's right. How do you help
don't get your value from your self-worth? You get your value from your objective worth.
How do you think we start that conversation with someone who tells you on a campus, well, you're right, I don't know if my life has value?
Right. So then what I do, and I've spent my life doing this, whenever I summarize my life's work, I say I have had one overriding theme: the consequences of secularism. Nobody talks about it. They talk about religious extremism, but they never talk about secular extremism. They talk about the consequences of religion that are bad, but never the consequences of secularism that are bad. It's a completely dishonest approach to real life. And so one of the consequences of secularism is, the truth is, your life doesn't have any worth. That's the truth. Why are you worth more than a pebble on a beach? Because you think so? Okay, but as I said, a 1-year-old doesn't think so. Certainly a dog doesn't think so. Why not just walk around shooting dogs? And by the way, in that regard, it's remarkable, but the human fetus or the unborn, whatever term you wish to use, has fewer rights to life than a dog. That says something about a society.
It certainly does. And it's a pretty, I think, damning statement of where we are throughout our nation and many states across the nation. What I have found interesting recently, I know you've probably been following this in California, Gavin Newsom has been running these billboard ads, taking taxpayer funds from California, running billboards in states like Texas and Mississippi, promoting, California's now new abortion tourism scheme. And on the billboard, they're actually using a New Testament verse of loving thy neighbor. And I find it so interesting because it just shows you how dishonest these politicians are. Because I can't imagine Gavin Newsom condoning the use of a scripture verse in any other way other than to make a case for why killing babies and you should come to California to kill your baby.
I didn't know this. So there are billboards that use the verse, love your neighbor as yourself, in defense of abortion?
Yes, and that Gavin Newsom is paying for it. I just find it so interesting because for years when I've been out in front of the Supreme Court or we've been on campuses, I literally, even before I converted to Catholicism, the argument was, get your rosaries off of my ovaries. I mean, that's been screamed at me, thousands and thousands of times.
Get your rosary off my ovary?
Yes.
I will say this. The left comes up with better phrases than we do.
They do.
You got to hand them.
They have some really good slogans. I mean, sometimes I have to stop laughing.
Right. I agree. The irony is we want no hands on your ovaries. That's the joke.
Yeah.
It's like see, the phrases are funny, but they're meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
They actually are antithetical to reality. For example, let a woman do what she wants with her own body. So the obvious intellectual flaw is that it's not her body. It's another body in her body. Nobody is telling her what to do with her body. We're telling her what to do with another body, which is what morality is about.
Yep. And then what we actually have already accepted in our society, we have lots of laws saying what you can't do with your body, like smoke crack cocaine while you're pregnant. If you do that and your child is born addicted to crack cocaine, you as a mother will face consequences. Or go to the pulmonary ward in a hospital. You can't start smoking cigarettes when you have COPD or cystic fibrosis patients anywhere near you. Yes, that's your body and your right to ingest a chemical or smoke a chemical that you want to.
By the way, they don't even believe that, though. They don't believe let people do what they want with their own bodies because they were for vaccine mandates. It's a complete lie. It's a complete lie that they defend the idea of bodily autonomy.
Yep,
it's
that's right.
100% lie.
Yeah, they can no longer use my body, my choice now because of their forced vaccine mandates, because that went out the window day one with the COVID pandemic, because they feel like they can tell us what to do with our bodies. And they are completely in the moral right and have the moral high ground, they feel like, when it comes to that. It's completely ridiculous when you see just how the left continues to you redefine terms, to use religion and use religious verses and texts when they want to. The other time they're completely saying that these are meaningless, made up, patriarchal texts that need to be, thrown like Roe versus Wade onto the ash heap of history. I mean, we have Stacey Abrams in Georgia who recently even said that the sound of a heartbeat in an ultrasound was completely made up, and that was from the patriarchy. It was a manufactured sound.
Really?
Yes, it's a I mean, and it's so funny because
who said that the sound of the heartbeat was made up?
Stacey Abrams running for governor in Georgia on the Democratic ticket.
So they laugh at the people. I never met one, but they laugh at people. They exist, I'm sure, who say that the moon landing was staged in an Arizona desert or something.
Mm-hmm.
So why is this not of that genre?
I know. I mean, I was just wishing when I heard those statements, I'm like, every woman in America needs to post the video of her son or daughter's ultrasound, because we've all heard the heartbeat of our child.
my wife my wife came within minutes. I married her when she had already 2 children, but she tells me that with her first child, she went for an abortion.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, she just decided at the last minute that she wouldn't have one. And now she has I think, a brilliant suggestion that the pro-life community push for complete or full disclosure laws.
Mm.
That would do more to stop abortions than laws themselves, because there will always be states that will keep it legal. But if you actually showed a video of what that creature is like, that she is expelling from the world, it would have a huge impact. The last thing Planned Parenthood wants is a knowledgeable pregnant woman.
That's absolutely right. And we've seen this time and time again where states have passed, ultrasound laws saying a woman must be shown an ultrasound. But then the question is, when the ultrasound tech turns the screen towards the woman, we've heard lots of stories where the woman, who later becomes pregnant later in life say, wait a minute, that's not what I saw on the ultrasound machines. What are they actually showing her on the ultrasound? Why do they oppose any regulations or any laws that are being introduced in states like showing ultrasounds? Because they don't want women to know, because darkness only thrives in the dark. And that's exactly what abortion is. It's fundamentally evil. So it's so fascinating. I don't even know if you saw, there was a recent Good Morning America article where researchers in Britain were showing these 3D, 4D ultrasounds, these video images of children reacting when the mother was consuming, I think, carrots versus green vegetables versus kale, probably. And they were saying, wow, look at these babies in the womb and how they react to good food, good tasting food versus bad tasting food. And then I'm like, wait a minute, they're babies in the womb right now, but literally on your next segment, you will call them inconvenient parasites or fetuses or, blobs of tissue. And I think it's so, the dichotomy that we have going on in our country, it just doesn't make sense and makes your head spin.
How do people defend on logical, again, don't have to be a believer in God, on logical grounds, if a pregnant woman wants to deliver the child, and a crook in a holdup shoots her and kills the baby, he is charged with homicide. But if she wants the baby dead, then it's a non-issue. How does one explain that? There, as I said earlier, there is no parallel to that in the entire moral universe.
You're so right. You're so right. And I think it actually hurts us when we have dialogue with young men on campuses. And I've noticed this in the past as well, where we're talking to young men about what's your responsibility if your girlfriend becomes pregnant. And they'll say, oh, her body, her choice, I don't have a say. And then I'll counter with something like, well, do you think, if she chooses to parent your child and raise your child and she does it alone, shouldn't you be forced to pay, child support? And the men will say, well, that's not fair either. And so I'm like, well, no, actually the code says you will have to pay child support and you will go to jail if you did not pay child support. But yet when it comes to whether or not she solely is the person who gets to decide whether or not your child gets to live or die.
Single men, or any men, actually, it's men's best friend, abortion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about pregnancy. Great. Let's go to bed, baby.
Yep, that's right. And our young men are deeply, deeply confused. We've been doing a lot of research at Students for Life on this for the past 2 years, and they're actually a lot more confused than the women are when it comes to this issue, because they've had their mothers now, the baby boomer generation, kind of ingrained into them that it's her body, her choice. And even if they have these instincts that maybe they should step up and do something, they feel afraid to speak. And there's like this conflict going on in their minds. And it's maddening to watch it unfold and to be that person. Me, I was, watching these interviews happen behind glass. But switching gears, I know you have to go. You have a busy day. I want to ask one last question. We try very hard, Students for Life, when we're on campuses, or the 1,300 groups, when we're on campuses every day engaging in debate, we try to measure the number of conversations that we can produce on campus and the results of those conversations. So, we're averaging 10% minds changed in person, online. Depending on the city, it's 18 to 34% minds changed in the conversations. And we have a lot of different ways that we do that. You all have done such an amazing job at PragerU with starting conversations. But what have you found to be some of the best techniques, beyond saying we're going to win the debate, to actually changing someone's mind, to plant that seed and get folks from diverse backgrounds to move closer to whatever argument we're making?
So in light of that, let me first note that there is a video up at PragerU. We have 500 5-minute videos, and I give 10% of them only. 90% are given by others. One of the 10% is on abortion that I gave, and it's got many millions of views, and people should use it because I don't invoke God. I don't invoke Bible. I don't invoke religion. All I use is reason. And I don't even talk about legality or illegality. I talk about exactly what you've had me on your show for, or on your podcast, to talk about the morality, not the legality, the morality of abortion. And it has changed minds because people don't think of it that way. By the way, it is also worth noting that there are very few countries in the world that have as permissive a view of abortion as America. You can't get an abortion as easily in France as you can in America, or Italy, or virtually any other Western country. It's not, well, we have a video on that, by the way, comparing American abortion laws with European abortion laws. So my modus operandi in talking about abortion is to talk about the morality issue, just exactly what you've asked me to do. People can differ. For example, I'm a big believer, and I don't know, you may not agree with me, and I deeply respect that. Let me before I say what I'm about to say, the child conceived in a rape is as much a child of God as a child conceived in the marital bed. I fully acknowledge that. However, I live in the world, and in the world, to do good, it is not possible not to compromise. To give a crazy example, but a really good one, America supported Stalin, the second greatest mass murderer in history. Hitler was third, Mao was first, in order to fight the Nazis. We compromised on our values to support Stalin. You can't get good done on earth. We're not living in heaven if you don't have a compromise. So if I can get people on board by making exceptions for rape or incest, I will do that. That's why I talk. That's why I talk about morality rather than legality. So that's number one, because they will dismiss you. They will dismiss your moral arguments if you seem to be unbending. And even though, of course, as I said, that a child conceived under any circumstance is a precious creature of God, we have to do the best is the enemy of the better. It is one of the fundamental beliefs I have in life. I go for better, not best.
That's a great point. I mean, this is certainly, I think, something that is, this could be a whole podcast episode on its own, because this is the debate that's raging right now in the pro-life movement in states across the country when we're advancing legislation to protect lives, because as a leader in the movement, you're making these assessments of what piece of legislation do we put forward, do we advance, do we put our time and money behind that will save the most amount of lives, that will do the most good, that will move us closer to our movement's goalpost, which is abortion unavailable and unthinkable across our nation, where no woman stands alone. And I think what you just touched upon is a very fact, the argument that we have amongst ourselves of, do we introduce legislation with, at Students for Life, our goal is we introduce legislation with no exceptions, but ultimately, if they're added in at the last moment, we will still support that piece of legislation, realizing if we can, end 97% of abortions in a state, it's much better than none.
Exactly. That's right. That's the point.
And I think we have to have tolerance for each other as we work these out, because that's actually one of the biggest challenges within the pro-life movement is this absolutist opinion versus those trying to do the most amount of good.
Do you want to do good or feel good?
I'm going to end the show on that because you just made my point for me. Thank you so much, Mr. Prager, for coming on and giving us some nuggets of your wisdom. And thanks for making a fan of Exclusively Pro-Life with my husband, Jonathan.